George Talbot, who's our Pro-Vice Chancellor for Research and the Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, to offer his opening remarks.
Thanks very much, Andy. Welcome, everybody. Great to see so many people here in the room and another 50 online. So welcome to you as well, even though I can't see you. Hopefully you can see me and see us. So this is a great opportunity to launch a new research centre at Edgehill. So Andy's asked me to speak for a few minutes, which I will do. To outline, first of all, where the university has come from over the last 10 or 15 years in research terms, and about the priorities and how this centre fits in with that, and the roadmap for the future, really. So, Edgehill achieved university status in 2006 and achieved research degree awarding powers 2 years later in 2008. Setting up the graduate school in 2010, which is roughly, well, it's when I arrived here. So we've had 2 ref cycles since that, after the RAE, the Research Assessment Exercise, as it used to be called, in 2008, when we returned 14% of the eligible staff. In 2021, that had gone up to 27%, 27.2% to be precise, which was the sector average, the mean average. So we succeeded in being average by 2014, which was an achievement in itself. In 2021, that's gone up to 47% the last time out, and our plans for next time will be around about 65%, which would be about 400 people that we are intending to return as part of that. So you can see this growth trajectory going on. It's not just the numbers, also the quality. In terms of the grade point average in 2008, it was 1.5. In 2014, it was 2.22, and in 2021, it was 2.67. So we're heading in the direction of a GPA of 3 for the next time around. So what are our priorities? Our priorities are investing in people, appointing people who can be the best researchers they can possibly be. And Andy is himself a good example of that. I appointed Andy about 10 years ago now. Taking a chance on a very, very young professor at that stage, who and the investment has paid off, I think, without any shadow of a doubt. So, an institution like ourselves, we need to be talent spotters, we need to be backing winners, and he's an excellent example of that. We also need to make sure that our research environment is sustainable, and we do that by winning grants. We have been doing more of that year on year over the last decade, and we need to do rather more of it, and research centres are an important part of that, because part of the mission of a research centre will be to generate impact by building partnerships outside of the university, but also bringing in endorsement in the form of cash from the research councils and the major charities, which I'm pleased to see, as I say, that we're doing, and that's part of the agenda for the future. And to take full advantage of our geography. Often you'll hear people saying that we're at a disadvantage because we're an odd kind of a wrinkle between Liverpool City region and Greater Manchester and Lancashire. But actually there are advantages in that too, because what we have here is unique, and whatever shade of government emerges from the next general election in the next 12 months or so, the sense of place is unlikely to go away, I think. And there are big opportunities in this part of the country for addressing disadvantage of one kind or another in terms of improving growth and health in the region. And the centre is front and centre in that, in terms of improving health. Next priority on my list is investing in our research environment and the whole agenda around open research, which you'll be familiar, some of you, with open access, I think. We had a letter from the UKRI yesterday telling us that things are going to change from the 1st of January next year for the publication of books and book chapters, that they will need to be published in a way that's accessible to people without having to pay very large amounts of money to publishers of one kind or another. So that's a further challenge that we have coming towards us that we need to address by bringing in more funding to support that sort of thing. And last but not least, the whole equality, diversity and inclusion agenda. We're committed to excellence. We're also committed to opportunity, and I'm pleased to report that last week we learned that our Athena Swan Bronze Award for the university has been extended for the next 5 years without conditions or recommendations. A completely clean sheet in terms of response, which is a great accolade really for those people who were involved. And in terms of the KPIs that we have coming out of our research strategy, they are about increasing the number of PhDs, and Andy's centre has been responsible for bringing in some funded PhDs, which is very welcome. The university commits about funding 36 PhD students each year in the form of our graduate teaching assessment scheme, which has been very successful. And a KPI is to increase the number of research centres. So in terms of how this evening relates to that, well, obviously it's a new centre, a centre for mental health, sport and physical activity, which has been very successful in developing partnerships, and I know there are a number of partner institutions here in the room, and there will be speakers from some of those in the course of the evening, which is great. Andy and his team contributed to a bid which went in recently, and we'll hear the outcome of in the next 4 weeks through the scheme for expanding research excellence in England. We've pitched for £12.5 million for a Healthy Generations hub, which will include mental health, but it's broader than that. And if that comes off, that would be a terrific achievement for the centre and for the university. The centre has, before it came fully into existence, it has made a contribution to the REF in terms of a 4-star impact case study, working with Everton in the community, about which I'm sure you're going to hear some more in the course of the evening. And so that's to set some of the background scene. I'm really delighted to be here to launch this. It's been a while in the gestation, but terrific to be here at its birth this evening. So, Andy, back to you.
Hopefully everyone got the very young bit. Not quite so young anymore. And I think that's important because over the course of the last 10 years, since myself and other colleagues who've joined us since have been working in this space, this has been essentially today is a culmination of all of that effort, not just by colleagues at the university, but many of the other partners who are represented in the room, either virtually or in person. And it also, in many respects, underpins the values and the approach that we endeavour to take as a research centre. And many of those things underpin what George has just referred to. You'll be delighted to know that we're not going to take you through a blow-by-blow account of the centre. That will be available online in a new set of web pages and project pages that you'll be able to follow up and read at your leisure. And you do have some of the very headline activities in the documentation that you've been given upon arrival. So today very much is to present to you the approach that we wish to take here at Edgehill under the name of the centre, and to offer an invitation to all of you individually and to your respective organisations to come along with us on this journey over the next 10 years. Which I still won't be at retirement age, I've realised, to begin to address one of the major global health challenges that is of significance not just to people individually, regionally or nationally, but in our wider communities, in relation to our families, in relation to... Please come in. I was about to talk very closely about lived experience, Mike, and others, so I'll tip to you very shortly. So delighted to welcome. I'll come back to that shortly. And one of the key things that we want to do as a research centre is to ensure that we support colleagues across the sector to better understand evidence and improve the lives of those who are affected by mental health problems. All of us in this room have mental health, so all of us should have a vested interest in this. Some of us in this room will also experience poor mental health from time to time, and many of us, perhaps far more than that, will have been indirectly affected. And I'm delighted that all of those organisations who are represented here, and particularly those colleagues who have important lived experience, are represented in what the centre aspires to do. And you're going to hear many of those colleagues today, so you'll be pleased to know we're only going to talk for about 15 minutes. You're actually going to hear from many of the sector leaders, partners, and others who embody the values of opportunity that Professor Talbot referred to earlier. We do regard ourselves as occupying an important position in the sector and being able to support colleagues to do what they do well. Many of the organisations support communities who we engage with in different ways, but you already know the needs of those communities. And one of the things that the centre is expected to do, and what we're aspiring to do, is to begin to mobilise those networks and relationships who are represented here, and others who hopefully will join us along the way. The ultimate goal for much of this, and for many of us in the room, is not only the improvement of immediate mental health among individuals and communities, but hopefully a commitment to wider systems change across the sectors. So we're deliberately inclusive as a centre. We don't just prioritise on sport, physical activity, or other types of movement behaviours. We're inclusive of other sectors, including those who are working in mental health and physical health, and personalised approaches to healthcare, and we're committed to working also, would you believe, with GPs and other medical professionals. I'm delighted that Chris, the mental health lead for Cheshire and Merseyside, is with us, who's been a really important advocate on behalf of much of the work, together with other colleagues, on ensuring that we can begin to mobilise the different sectors that we each represent, and who need to work collectively and collaboratively on action rather than talk. There's lots of talk in the sector, and I'm delighted that those colleagues who are here have been committed to shared action and responsibility, and that's very much what we're looking to do as a result. We have many shared ambitions and challenges, and we also have significant expertise, knowledge and skills that collectively, if we harness them appropriately and with the same vision, can address many of those global challenges. So we are aligning some of the work, as you would expect, to the Sustainable Development Goals, the most prominent four of which are illustrated on the slides behind me. But one of the key things in terms of our values and approach, that they're captured very loosely, and this is the limits of my artistic endeavours, so I apologise, but it's better than bullet points. Effectively, for many years, the work that has been undertaken in the centre before it emerged into being as it is today, has effectively focused on the significance of mental health inequalities and inequalities that impact people's physical and social health. But fundamentally, this is about working with, for, and on behalf of people and the communities whom they represent. And we do that through a whole range of activities. Some of that stuff is most commonly and popularly described today as co-production. People have been doing this for many years, often in name, sometimes in reality. But one of the absolute central ways in which we hope to operate as a centre is to work with our respective partners to co-produce solutions which address many of those challenges that each of you encounter, either individually or from an organisational perspective. We can help to do that through the work that we do in relation to capturing, monitoring of learning and change. Systems change is hard, it's long, but much of the learning and evidence needs to be captured incrementally as we go, and to be shared and disseminated. And it's pleasing that George just referred earlier to the UK Arise perspective on ensuring that we can generate research which is meaningful, usable, and can be shared for the benefit of the public, whose purse effectively supports and funds much of that research, not entirely. But we are committed to sharing that insight, and that was indeed a number of the key messages that we've been learning as part of our Moving for Mental Health activities, which was initially supported by colleagues at Mind and the Sport for Development Coalition, and has been subsequently developed with colleagues at Movember, Rugby League Cares, and colleagues at Everton and beyond. to start to understand what the needs of the sector are and how we actually move many of these agendas on. And I should at this point recognise that the support that the university gave to a series of workshops and engagement sessions that we've done across the sector, and the results of which are effectively reflected in what the values and approach are shared with colleagues today. And that was supported by the Research Investment Fund that the university kindly supported myself and colleagues to do over the course of the last year. And that's been really valuable in shaping the philosophy and sharpening our aspirations, but also to focus on what the core priorities will be. And some of that we're sharing here today, but also on the various assets that we'll release over the course of the next few weeks in the build-up to Christmas. For those of you who aren't familiar perhaps with the expertise that we do have in the centre, it is a very inter and multidisciplinary centre. We straddle a range of sectors. There are colleagues from across all of the university's faculties and disciplines who collectively have a very shared mission and ambition to begin to undertake cutting edge research which aligns to the university strategy that George referred to. I always start with this one, and I know many colleagues would do similar. We start from the perspective of those who are experts by experience and with lived experience. And I'm delighted that Mike from Three Dads Walking, we should have deliberately done that, Mike, when you came through the door. Mike and his team, for colleagues who are not familiar with Mike's work, I'm sure if you just Google Three Dads Walking, you will see the significant contribution that colleagues with lived experience in this space can have, not only on bringing people together for good, meaningful work, but in raising the political priorities and status of mental health and suicide prevention on the landscape more generally, and particularly in schools. And we're delighted that Mike and other colleagues who will talk to that agenda today are here, because that is where we wish to start from, and that is where we can begin to identify the solutions to many of the challenges that actually have existed for a long period of time. We just haven't found the most effective, workable solutions to addressing those, and that is the purpose of what we're trying to do, hopefully with colleagues in the room. We do have expertise around helping many of the organisations present to design and deliver their programmes from that perspective of lived experience and from the knowledge that colleagues have of their communities and of their organisational challenges. Our job is not to tell people what to do from the outset, is to help to understand, learn, shape, and then hopefully improve practice and conditions. We do have colleagues who work across the creative health and personalised healthcare spaces, and particularly in relation to the movement and measurement of physical activity. And delighted that Stuart is from the department, is also here with us, and his team, who have actively worked to advance not only the analysis of movement behaviours among children and young people, but also increasingly to recognise the significance between those behaviours and the importance of mental health in a whole range of domains. And you will see many of those leading projects in the material that will be presented to you. We also, for the course of the last few years, have begun to work with colleagues and partners on workforce professional development and addressing mental health literacy among colleagues in organisations, and to use that valuable insight and partnership work to begin to understand and support those organisations to improve the lives of those whom they work with and whom they represent. Delighted also that you're going to hear from a couple of our current PhD students, which George already referred to, because one of the commitments that we make to our students here and to our partners is that you will hopefully engage not only with well-qualified academic experts, but also well-qualified, externally engaged and professional students. So no pressure, you guys, when you talk shortly. Many of these guys work as embedded researchers within organisations and help those organisations to realise their respective missions. And that is an important part of the continued thought leadership that hopefully the centre will provide for the sector and with the sector over the course of the next few weeks and months, and hopefully years beyond. We have routinely fed into a range of policy and evidence reviews, and delighted that there are colleagues in the room who work with us on the latest submission to the Health Select Committee for the Men's Health Inquiry. We've also fed previously into suicide prevention work nationally, and the role that sport, together with health and related sectors, can play in the advancement of those two agendas. And hopefully being able to mobilise that experience and be able to offer clarity on the voice and the importance of the role of evidence in what works to support mental health through those spaces has been reflected in those ongoing discussions, and hopefully that's something that we will be returning to in the early new year with partners and colleagues on that committee. We do work across a range of sectors, and this very much reflects the diversity of expertise, interest and researchers who are members of the centre. So hopefully there is a home for many, if not all of you, in there. When we were putting this together, I was thinking, are we trying to be preaching to everybody and being experts in none of these? But actually, I think when we look at the respective colleagues who represent each of those disciplines and the interdisciplinarity between them, which effectively reflects not only the prevailing government policy direction, but actually the increasing expectations on organisations to work collaboratively across sectors in ways that perhaps they haven't done before, using language that they're perhaps not familiar with, and using resources which many of them individually might not have. But collectively, being able to mobilise that collective action and resource does give us an opportunity to work across spaces, and the bid that George referred to is very much an indication or an exemplification of that, and how we can mobilise different colleagues across those spaces to support the sector in a range of ways. The most obvious and timely example of that actually is an opportunity that we're very grateful to colleagues from CMSPR and Sport England supporting together with our wider partners on how we can develop the National Workforce Register to support and safeguard participant welfare in the sport and physical activity sector. And that does include the promotion of physical and mental health and well-being, but also about how we begin to mobilise a sector to address many of those stubborn challenges which we've encountered at an organisational or local level, but particularly at a national level, and the significant opportunity here to influence and work with us on that project as that unfolds, together with our colleagues in the Centre for Sports Law and together with those in the Centre for Safeguarding and Sport. So we, as a centre, we are keen to work with colleagues in their respective areas of expertise, and we're committed to sharing that insight in a range of ways. As researchers, we're expected, of course, to publish our work in the relevant academic and other institutional outlets for the reasons that George mentioned. But one of the resounding messages that was shared with us during the co-production activities and the consultation which we did for Moving for Mental Health in the middle of COVID. I would advise anybody not to try to do a national consultation during a pandemic. But it was probably one of the most enlightening pieces of work that collectively we were able to do, where we worked with almost all government departments, with over 70 organisations, and particularly with those colleagues with lived experience, to identify not only what the challenges the pandemic presented to mental health and well-being, but what the potential solutions were and how we needed to change our ways of working as organisations. And one of those key messages was, how do we get the stuff that you write in journals and books that no one ever reads, with all due respect, into the public domain in ways that are helpful, understandable and practical. And one of the commitments that we're making as a centre is to ensuring that certainly the work that we do to get together with the partner organisations is to make that evidence available through the various websites and channels that we will be able to communicate, but also through dedicated events that we're hoping to develop with our colleagues in the Knowledge Exchange Office here, and Christina will talk to that later on. But that really is an opportunity for us to share learning with you and to learn from you, to identify current, future and additional priorities. So please do look out for that. I know we have asked you in the sign-up process whether you'd like to share that. We won't be peppering your inbox every day or week, but we will be sharing that insight, and there will be an opportunity for all of you to share your expertise, areas of interest with us in a range of ways. So following today's launch, we will be in a position to announce our external advisory board, and we're also very much inviting colleagues to become part of the journey that I've just described in a range of ways. We're committed to creating a lived experience panel which is appropriately supported, listened to and remunerated to help identify the relevant priorities for us, to check and challenge what we're doing to ensure that what we do is relevant. So there is an open invitation to colleagues in the room to begin to contribute in a range of ways, and you'll be able to do that by scanning the QR code, and we will be making those available to you post-event as well, for you to engage with the centre in a whole range of ways. We do very much hope that we'll be able to do much of the hybrid activity as possible to make this as open and as inclusive, not exclusive hopefully, Freudian slip, inclusive to a range of people, not just in the UK but beyond, because many of these challenges are shared not just by colleagues in the UK but further afield, and many of those international partners who colleagues work with and represent, and including yourselves, have begun to identify common challenges, and hopefully the centre is an important part of that international network of researchers who begin to address those challenges. So please do consider supporting us in that respect, and we will certainly be sharing that with you as we move forward. But I'm out of time. I'm going to hand over to our two of our postgraduate researchers. And I think for me this is a really important development because it reflects much of what the values and the culture that not only George referred to, but hopefully the university more widely represents. And that is how we can involve and engage our students in networks to begin to address many of the things that we've been talking about, but also how they can help support you as organisations to address many of the challenges that you guys face. So I'll hand over to Deanna and Sophie, and once we've done that, we'll go on to the partners. So Deanna, Sophie, over to you.
Thank you very much, Andy.
How do you? Yeah. Okay. Good evening, everyone. We are apparently the well-experienced PhD students, and we want to talk, and it's kind of introduction as well, about a network that we want to create as part of the center, because we believe in this idea of sharing the knowledge, as Andy said, and we have a really long name. So this is the Postgraduate and Early Career Researcher Network for Mental Health, Sport and Physical Activity. So a little bit about us, part of the committee initially of the network, certainly not all the members, but I'm Diana. My name is a bit longer, but I'm Diana Herrera. I will be the network coordinator for the first year. I'm a GTA PhD student, finishing my first year. It goes so fast. And my research project is about well-being and mental health in rugby league players in a partnership with Rugby League Cares.
I'm Sophie. I've been lucky enough to have been at Edge Hill for quite a while now. I did my undergraduate and masters here. They can't get rid of me, unfortunately. So I am also working with Rugby League Cares, working on the impact of the community health and wellbeing programmes, such as Offload, which is, if you've not come across Offload, I highly recommend that you go and have a look at it. And then we also have Ellie. You can introduce Ellie?
Yeah.
Ellie, give us a wave. Let's see where Ellie is.
Ellie is also a GTA PhD student. She's researching ahead of the game, Movember's community sports. Still, if you know what is Movember or not know what is Movember, go check it out. Also, ahead of the game program. You will hear a little bit about that later on as well, hopefully. And it's a community sports-based health program, and she's working in that, focusing child and young people in the UK. So, why we created this network and how this landed. The whole idea is to connect people that is studying and researching mental health, sport, and physical activity in different disciplines, different nationalities. Either it's just people here in the UK or people internationally. Some of the students do come here like me. I'm from a different country, and we want to connect those people. We're in this process of doing a PhD or researching, we start to getting to know more people like this, but also you get experience, you get to connect with partners, and we think it's worth to connect but also to getting to know how it works and see how we can be, hopefully, like 10 years time, something like that, being in a position to create a center and do this kind of work. Want to share personal experiences, but also getting to know someone else's experiences, even in this part of the country or abroad, and perhaps getting to know how to conduct research in different ways, better ways, and engaging in external knowledge and exchange activity, because that's the main thing what we're doing. We're researching, but to help people and get the message delivered appropriately. Also part of this, we want to foster collaborations. We're learning as part of our journey the importance of partnerships, how creating these relationships with partners is key to research and getting to deliver the knowledge with people that matters. So we want to foster that as well in our network.
So we got together with a lot of the current PGRs and ECRs that are already connected with the team here at Edge Hill, and we wanted to sort of establish how exactly this network is going to function and what exactly we're going to do. So one of the main priorities is going to be dissemination, so sharing a lot of the work from within the centre and from partners external to the centre, so that we are really working on the knowledge exchange that Deanna mentioned there. We also want to make sure that we are offering training opportunities to support the members' continued professional development and to strengthen our skills. This includes sort of access to conferences, access to courses provided by some of the partners that might be here in the room, as well as courses and opportunities here within the university. Obviously, it's a network, so there's going to be networking involved. There is a lot of benefit to being in a room with other people who have similar priorities to you. I was at a networking event that held by some of the undergraduates this morning, and you really get to see the benefit of being in the same space as people who have similar research interests, who have similar priorities, and there's always a good aspect of sharing rather than being in competition with each other. Oh, yeah. And the final thing that we really wanted to focus on as a priority of this network is that it's not all about the academic and the research and the funding, although that is obviously a big part of what we do. A big part of it is also supporting each other. As a PhD student, it can be quite isolating at times, though we all have very good supervisors. Please don't sack me. So we are all very well supported, but also nobody really understands what PGRs and ECRs experience other than PGRs and ECRs. So the best way for us to support each other is to remind each other that we're not alone and that we are all dealing with similar things. And the best way to do that is going to be through this network. There we go. Yep.
I haven't got any money, Sophie, to give you. We'll give you a free drink later. No, I think more seriously, the PhD students, the researchers, the undergraduate students who are here and who collaborated on the network event earlier are critical to what the centre does. They are the future thought leaders and researchers and partner collaborators. I'm delighted that there's a number of former students who are in the room who are now working either in the space or in organisations. And at the risk of embarrassing everybody, can I just ask anybody who's been through either the undergraduate, postgraduate or centre before to put their hand in the air? A few reluctant people, sorry, including you, Chris. I know you'd be reluctant. I'm delighted. I mean, I think it was Mike from Everton that was telling me the other day that a number of network meetings with the English Football League and the Premier League recently. There was a joint collaboration meeting where 15 of the clubs that were represented, of all of those present, had all been through the sport and mental health programme here at Edge Hill and are all now working in this space to activate the change that we've described earlier. That is one of the important contributions that I think we can make, not just to individual lives, but to the sector and to our partners. And thanks very much for the partners who are here, who continue to employ our students in a whole range of ways and to continue to provide placements and other work-related learning opportunities. And I think there's lots of opportunity for us to think even more creatively about how we do that and work with you. And I know Christina will come on to that. But you've probably had enough of listening to us from Edge Hill, so I'm going to hand over to the stars of the show. So no pressure, but I'm delighted to welcome firstly Hayley Jarvis, who is the head of physical activity at Mind, who I know has hot-footed it from Nottingham for another event for us in the driving rain. So we clearly owe you something as well, Hayley. But Hayley's been a transformational figure nationally in bringing physical activity for the benefit of mental health for many years, and we've been lucky enough to benefit from her expertise, guidance and support over the course of the last too many years for both of us to care to remember, I'm sure. But Hayley, as I mentioned earlier, was instrumental in helping to bring the Moving for Mental Health government policy brief to life, which has helped to stimulate much of what we're talking about today, not only across the sector and into wider government, but more widely into local communities. I'm going to hand over to Hayley, who will be able to give us an update on the national state of physical activity and its contribution to mental health from a mind perspective and the role of mind in helping to promote good mental health for everyone. So, Hayley.
Hi. Wow, that's a bit embarrassing, isn't it? Hope I can do that justice after that. So I am thrilled to be here this evening on behalf of Mind, the mental health charity. I've been in post around 8.5 years, so not quite as long in the tooth as Andy, but nearly, I'm getting there. And I've had the pleasure of heading up all of our sport and physical activity work. So we delivered a large programme called Get Set to Go with Sport England, reaching 10,000 people. We talked about the English Football League. We partnered with them. You would have seen our squiggle on the back of the shirts for 4 seasons. Game-changing partnership in terms of raising awareness, training 2,500 staff, lots of other things, and really driving our support to the sport and physical activity sector for our Sport England system partnership. We really want to position mental health alongside physical health, safeguarding that it's embedded, and great to see CMSPR in the room, and we've been doing some work together to make sure that that really does happen. But the heart of all of our work is really ensuring that people's lived experience is heard. They have a voice, that people really share and direct what we're doing. And some of you might have seen our campaign that we launched for World Mental Health Day with ASIC, so global brand. We launched a campaign called #NewPersonalBest, which was all about reframing movement for about how it makes you feel. And that was so important to me. We worked with a group of experts by experience for almost 12 months. So people that found it really hard to get active, that had terrible experiences, that developed long-term health conditions or injuries, and really to sort of shake up the sector around that. So I think that, I guess that's just one example of the power of lived experience and how we can partner to amplify it. And without being really cheesy, I am really pleased to see that lived experience is at the forefront of what you're trying to do here, because that is so important for it to be up front and centre. And all the time, you know, I might have my own lived experience, but actually it's bringing different voices, different perspectives together. I also have the privilege of convening a national group, so the Mental Health Expert Group for Physical Activity, bringing together physical activity charities that are working with physical activity sport movement. Got a couple of members here, Movember and Rugby League Cares, but people like Scottish Association of Mental Health, Sport in Mind, State of Mind, as well as those peer-led organisations. People like Mental Health Swims, Rachel was doing an amazing job up and down the country, Mental Health Football Wales. And for me, that's really important, right since I came into post back in 2015, was around collaborating. You know, this isn't new. This is about us working together and really sharing, but also supporting some of those organisations. So we do quite a lot of work behind the scenes to support them. So some of you might have seen our recent team up with Chasing the Stigma and the Hub of Hope, the app, to create a movement and physical activity finder. That sounds quite simple, but we didn't have one before. And actually, when all those voices came together in our meetings, we wanted to find a way of finding intentionally designed physical activity programs are safe, effective, delivered by people that have had training, that have got supervision and support, and getting them on there. And we already have over 200. And if you're not listed and you're delivering in that space, please do list it. I think that's really important for us to come together and support things like that. Again, it's not about duplication. So our values are at the heart of everything we do, and together is a key value for us. So quite simply, we are stronger in partnership. And there's quite a few familiar faces in the room, but there's also some new ones. So hopefully we'll make some new friends today as well. But we really believe that sport and physical activity can be used to build resilience, to help us stay well, to support and help mental health recovery, and to tackle stigma. Those big campaigns, the power of the badge, we've heard it quite a lot. But also, crucially, making sure people develop a healthy relationship with physical activity. I think the conversations become far more nuanced. 2015, we were saying, get active, it's good for your mental health. Pre-COVID, we didn't really talk about this stuff. We had some great early adopters in people like Everton, but otherwise it was like, get active for your mental health. But actually, it has become more nuanced. You know, during COVID, we saw people exercising for over 10 hours a day. 10 hours a day when everything shut down. The only support they had was walking or running for their mental health. So we have to be really careful that we don't over-evangelicalise physical activity as well. For some people, it's so hard to get started. For others, it can be over-exercise and exercise addiction. So we position it at Mind as something alongside medication and talking therapy. It's non-clinical. We know it can be life-changing and in some cases life-saving. But it is really complicated. So I guess something for us to stress and think about, policy, practice, research in the room, the evidence says this and lived experience definitely says it too. It's nuanced and I'm quite excited to see what comes out of this. And it's fair to say we've been on a journey from the Mental Health Charter for Sport and Recreation in 2015, and many of you in the room might be signatories, to working with Andy and the Edge Hill team on the steering group that we had from Get Set to Go, those early days coming to Stratford. The Tanny Gray Thompson Duty to Care review, and we're still campaigning for some of the recommendations in that, along to the first ever workforce survey with the Sport and Rec Alliance. So there's been so many things where we've worked together along this journey. But I think the Masters, that was something we really applauded, and so great to see so many students and former students here, and we've certainly promoted it, and really pleased that you've kind of got that peer support in track as well. We've heard about the Moving for Mental Health policy report and group with the Sport for Development Coalition, Edge Hill and Loughborough. And really that was about positioning physical activity as a tool to support us as we came out of the COVID pandemic. And for us, not only was it about that academic rigour and that evidence-based approach, but really that sound understanding of the practicalities of operationalising policy and practice. I mean, we've got a long way to go. We're still, advocating for those recommendations, but we're getting there. So I guess at Mind, we're really thrilled that we're launching the Centre for Mental Health, Sport and Physical Activity Research. We never have short titles, do we, tonight? And we really want to be part of it. You know, the evidence base is growing, but it's so hard to navigate, and I'm not particularly academic, but I think this gives us a real anchor point for all of us in this space to clearly translate that research into digestible practice and communications and resources. So I'm going to be a bit cheesy, at the risk of sounding cheesy, and you're going to groan at me. I'm borrowing and slightly adapting words from John F. Kennedy. Ask not what the centre can do for you, but what you can do to support the centre. I mean, let's face it, it's tough times at the moment. Public funds are stretched. We are in the midst of a mental health crisis. And we should be really prudent. Most of the money that we're spending is public money in one way or another most of the time. So for us, it's about collaboration rather than duplication, and working together to develop sustainable and shared ways of learning and working together. So we wish everyone the best, and we look forward to sort of exploring how we can get more involved. Andy and I have had some chats about events and things that we can jointly do. I sat listening to Diana and Sophie about your the peer researcher network. We've got a researcher with Loughborough University, Aku, looking at trauma-informed approaches in physical activity. I'm sure we're going to sign him up. Aku, if you're watching, we're going to get you in. But the lived experience networks, it's something we can all do in terms of promoting that. So I guess just to finish, I think we've come a long way in the sector in terms of embedding mental health in the sport world and getting physical activity in the mental health world. But I think this is just an exciting next step and something that we can all take collective action on. So good luck and thanks for having me.
Good quote. I should have done my research. But anyway, further ado, we'll move straight on from the wider national policy landscape to how things are operating on the ground in the real world as we stand here. I'm delighted to welcome both Emily Brady-Young from the Together an Active Future and colleagues from Creative Football to give us a real insight into how lots of the types of programmes that we're referring to here operate in the real world and how we can learn from much of the insight from these guys. So I'll hand over to you guys. Okay.
Three of us, so it's quite a show. I just want to start by having you reflect on a moment in your life, across your life course, where you might have connected with a system or an organisation. Most of us have connected with education. That's a big hitter. Many of us will have connected with employment, mental health services, GP services, midwifery services, all sorts of different services that we may have touch points across our life course. That's TAF's starting point. So TAF is, Together Active Future, is one of the 12 Sport England local delivery pilots to do things differently to tackle physical inactivity, inequality in a place, our place being the footprint of Pennine, Lancashire. We're now in a phase where we're called a place partner, and Sport England last week announced that they're going to £250 million in wider investment to spread the work that we've learnt on our 12 partners across the country and do that in another 100 places across England. That's the big picture. My role as head of research is to do that differently too, and that's been really interesting. I've spent a couple of years firstly embedding evaluative thinking into our teams, into our stakeholders, into our residents and into our partners, and so we have a plethora of research methods that everybody does. Throughout our work, we're working on 5 emerging enablers from all of that broad programme, and we're in all of those systems that I mentioned and more. We're very much walking alongside strong programmes already happening in our area. Through relationship building, big thing for us. Making connections, huge outcome for today is to make more connections and do something with those connections. Social learning, learning together, coming together to learn like this, in person, exchanging and networking. Huge enabler for our work in our place. Brave leadership is a big enabler. So we invest a lot in middle leader programs and executive programs to think differently and do differently and try things differently. And we're seeing and feeling that in this centre. And then finally investing in strengths. And that's what we're with Creative Football and Wayne and Paul today, because a strong programme with really strong people delivering really meaningful work in their place, and they're now in a position, they're going to tell you their story, to dig a little deeper in the research, to evidence what they do well, why they do well in their conditions, to identify enablers for others to do similar work in their conditions, but also they're a CIC, and they've got to get the commissioners on board as well. We've got to talk to commissioners, we've got to talk to participants, we've got to talk to research. And this is a success we've had with our slightly alternative research approach, is how do we then start translating? And that's what we're here to do today, start doing that with the centre. So, our big enabler, our big move changes, changing the people to change the system, and Paul and Wayne are going to tell you a little bit more how that's played out for them.
Thank you very much, Emily, and thank you, Andy, for inviting us today. I'll just try and give you, I'll be as brief as I can around the background of creative football, because it's quite a complex kind of story. It's important to note that we're not football coaches, far from it. We kind of share a love of football. We're mental health practitioners first and foremost. There's 4 of us, myself, Wayne, our colleagues Paul and Anthony, and we have a network of informal volunteers and supporters kind of throughout East Lancashire. So our origins go back around kind of 14 years ago. We were initially employed by a national health and social care charity called Creative Support, based in Manchester. And we kind of, we were awarded a social inclusion service back in 2009, which was quite a new thing at the time in Blackburn with Darwin. And we had a kind of a blank canvas to support people in the borough. And one of the things that we did was set up a very small football group, initially based at Blackburn Rovers Indoor Centre. And that was predominantly four males who weren't engaging with, they weren't answering the door to support workers, they weren't turning up to CPAs, and becoming increasingly isolated. But they loved football. And the beauty about football is you don't have to talk. You just turn up for the session, you play football, you feel better, you go home and you turn up again next week. But over time, that kind of there's a trust that kind of builds. There's friendships that build, and that's when you get to hear kind of what they might be struggling with at the time. So it might be a deterioration in mental health. They might need additional support, but it might be kind of environmental stresses as well. It might be things like housing, finances that are impacting on their life. So with our experience, kind of both professionally and with lived experience, we as we are at the minute as a CIC, we're able to provide this kind of holistic support. So we have sessions during the week. We have daytime sessions, evening sessions. But before and after those sessions, that's when we kind of get to know people, and that's where we can offer our support. I mean, we're not experts in everything, but we know and work closely with many, many partners, and that's probably the key for us. You have to surround yourself with as many partners and as you possibly can, so that you can support the people that are attending the sessions. We kind of work with housing, with all the A's as we call them, NA, CA, AA, endless kind of third sector organisations, statutory services. It's really important to have that support if you're putting on these kind of sessions. So in around kind of 2017, 18, we had a kind of surprise visit from Sport England and TAF. And whilst we remained with kind of creative support for the next 3 years, we kind of took the plunge this year with some amazing support from TAF to become a CIC. And the reason for doing that was, we wanted less restrictions around our practice, and also around funding. So it kind of seemed a no-brainer, to be honest. So just to give you a brief idea of the scale of creative football, we're currently supporting around 350 people a week throughout our various sessions. So under the umbrella of creative football, we have a Blokes United project, we have a Girls United project, we have social inclusion sessions. We do some work for Lancashire and South Cumbria Foundation Trust at Guild Lodge in Preston. We do some work with Blackburn College with their Panability team. And we also kind of do a little bit of consultancy, some kind of inclusive practice workshops for partners to become involved in, and any students obviously from here. So that's a kind of a very brief overview of creative football. I've probably not done it justice at all, but I know Wayne will do it justice, because Wayne is going to give a little bit of his own story, which I know you will find inspiring.
Well, where to start? Thanks for inviting us. Well, my journey, I won't be able to tell it all because there'll be enough books for a library and more labels at Morrison's, but I've been in and out of services since I was 14-year-old. Back when I was younger, and my mum and dad provided, but I was bouncing off the walls. I didn't understand that, it was just trouble at school. There was no really understanding of mental health there. There was only a few names, and when I first went into a service, it was all called schizophrenics. I think everyone just got the same medication, like Actil. So you had a bit of a shuffle. They kept you in hospital for a little bit, and then you're back on the street again. So I didn't want to be known as a nutter. Even my friends called me Waniac. So no matter where I went, there was a label. So I tried to crack on, avoid it. This has gone on for many years, in and out of services. Sometimes just letting me wear what I want to wear, what they needed to wear, so I could get back out of services. Lots of different types of medication. Does anybody know? Obviously now it's bipolar. A little bit of a quick overview of bipolar. The manic is the best thing in the world. I needed 3 groups of friends, 8 hours each. I could burn all their heads out. It was fantastic. I'd make everyone laugh. I bought everyone everything, and all of a sudden it was darkness. I didn't want to see anybody. I shut on lights. I wanted it to be the end of the world. That's how my life was. The ups and downs, and no matter what, I got into a job, and then I struggled and hit the deck again. Every job I got, I succeeded for about 6 weeks because I did everyone else's work talking 100 billion miles an hour, and then it crashed and burned all the time. And this has just been the story of my life. And I love football. Football's where I belong, but never really lasted everything I did. And I've been all over the country in different types of hospitals. Been sent many places. As we know, the country's broken at the minute. If you go to your doctors, you need help. How long's that going to take? So sometimes I actually did things wrong so I could get the help that I needed. In forensic settings. That's why I'm across in Blackburn, originally from a place called Grimsby, the Mighty Mariners. Some of you might know them, some of you probably won't know them. But I'm across here. And medication always just seems to be the answer in services. Here's your medication, get out. Here's your medication, get out. A lot of medication I was getting at the time was something to bring me down and something to bring me up, then something for the side effects of them. And I'd end up 18, 19, 20, 25 stone, couldn't move. There's your discharge. And as much as I wanted to get away from them people, as soon as I got outside, I was lonely. Then my coping strategies, because coping strategies, no matter what you're using, mine was quite self-destructive. So at the end, like addictions, drinking, all them things started coming along. And I'd stopped taking my medication because I didn't understand it. So then it just kept going on and on. And about 10, 12 years ago, I don't know if it's through age and stuff like that, or burning out, because I know everyone else around me had burnt out many a time. I went and they found the right medication for me. So I've got a chemical imbalance. So just keep me as like level as in that chemical imbalance. So I thought I cracked it. So I was across at Hull at the time and started working for the Tigers Trust, got out. There you go, he's there, started working for the NHS. You do some hours for us. This football, I've always had this like keenness and, you know, I'm a people's person. Yeah, great. Then all of a sudden I'm working for 5 organisations, doing all these things. We do this one for us. Yeah, I'll do that for the next thing. Crash and burn. So then you're realising there's much more than that. There is much more than that. Then there's the psychology side of it, going through my life map, because another label, everyone in here has got a personality disorder, everyone in here has got mental health, which Andy said earlier on, it's whether or not it affects our life. My personality disorder, which again, adding to my list, was apparently the best one to have, but the most self-destructive, because my heart was outside, so I want to help the world, I want to save the world, but I was open to getting hurt all the time. And again, then things built up. So I started doing a bit of psychology. Again, this is why I ended up moving into Blackburn and going back through my life map and finding out, you know, the power of 3, what was going on. The child within is the responsible adult, the critical parent, or that boss and stuff. So I started doing that course and I thought, oh God, there's got to be more to this. And all this time I'd seen the best practice, the worst practice, and like most organisations, major organisations in this country, we're stuck in the Stone Age. We need to change. We need to change that. So every single time we've got a revolving door system in most services where, right, here's your time, right, get out there. The only thing you should be doing when you're leaving an organisation or hospital, or whether, you know, it's a physical disability as well, you've come back from a leg break, is the only thing you should be doing is moving a dress. All your support around you, your activities, your friend networks, your support should already be there. So we started this. I was a service user in Kemple View, and I used to wait outside, and you see a doctor every 4 weeks, and I'd write what requests I'd want. They'd discuss it without me even being there, and then come in like a judging panel. I said, "What's this? What's this? You know, am I involved in my care? I'm not asking to go to the moon. I want to get involved in this." And you know, people started listening, and we started doing that. And this is how I met Paul, and Paul and Anthony, who are here today. We was users of a service that Paul was running at the time, going in the football, so I started volunteering, and you know, honestly, I can go on for ages because I'm so passionate about people. I'm so passionate about them little things in life that we don't even realise, walking past somebody. So say when I was in the hospital, a member of staff would walk in and not say morning, just 1 second, morning. I'm a nobody, I'm nothing. So all these things have been taken for what we do. Like I say, football is a byproduct. This can be replicated in every single thing. You meet and greet, the warmth. Everyone's got something you've got a connection with. So come out, started volunteering. Am I stepping over time here? Because I'll probably be here till next Friday, pal. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so sorry, yeah, sorry. So yeah, obviously bipolar and all these things going on, stable in there, but having coping strategies, having people around you. It's a lonely world. It's a lonely world we live in, and we all need people. There's a saying that we say about most people say, "You all right, mate?" No. Oh, I meant to say hello. Most people have got something going on their head. Just listening. Turn your phone off. Listen. Look someone in the eye. Most people have got their answers. Like I say, we're not psychiatrists, but we want to listen. The meet and greet, there's loads of people probably go to loads of sessions, right, 6 till 7, bag of footballs, but why not get there at 6:30? Morning, evening, how's your day? So we've got people from loads of different services. So I just want to go like a little bit of a, I say I'm not a tech guy, so I can just about read my writing, so please bear with me. It's all about your ethos. We don't know what's going on behind the face. I don't know if you see that Norwich video. There's the lads in the stand there. There was a guy, the two supporters, the one that was like the jumping, the guy who was quiet. What did we expect there? Again, we don't know what's going on behind people's face. We're on a fence post. A gust of wind is either way. Hey, we're not a football team, like Paul said. We're not football coaches. It's about coming and supporting each other. So that's what we offer. Bringing a community together with mental health support, giving people time and empathy. I never wanted sympathy. The story goes, you know, that deep hole, someone's stuck in a deep hole, half covered in water, freezing. Oh, I feel sorry for you, mate. Get in that hole with them. I understand what you're going through. Share a bit. I think sometimes we've got this in the system, you know, these boundaries. I think we can move them boundaries a bit. And there's that grey bit because you've got to give a bit. We're always saying our stories or sharing how we're feeling or what we've been through, and then people will open up. Men predominantly won't talk about anything because I'm macho and I'm hard. It's all right not to be okay. Do you know what I mean? So, so we do, far from football, we do walk and talks. Like Paul said, we've got links with partners. And the thing is, don't just give someone a phone number. When someone's suffering with anxiety, they're never going to go anywhere. They're never going to phone these people. So when we say partners, we go to them and they come to us, so people know faces. This is the difference. This is about systems change. Like Paul said, all the A's, but that gambling, food's a coping strategy. That's me at times. When I go into my hole, I'm in my bedroom with 35 bags of Doritos. That's me gone. Do you know what I mean? All them things go out the window. So like I said, hospital, rehab, supported living, a pathway. It's not just about us, it's about all the other projects that are going on. I know someone who was living in Blackburn, moved to Liverpool. We passed on the numbers for Colin Dolan's football therapy that he's got up there, with Liverpool football therapy, because he works during the day. It's about sharing. If someone's not right for us, share that with somebody else. Like Paul said, benefits, houses, courses, voluntaries. We're getting with companies, jobs, CVs, and then the other side of it, the night sessions. What's open? What services are open after 9 to 5? So what about everyone who works, who gets to go to see the GP, who can get in to see the GP? So the nighttime sessions, again, who's got 6 mates they can play football with? Who's good enough to play football in a football team on a Saturday and Sunday? This is the truth of the matter. And we'll talk about what things have affected it for the rest of our life from being children. I always use this as an example, being on that schoolyard, 2 best players, pit teams. Right? At the end, they're arguing over, I'm not having that guy there. We meet them guys 40 years later, 30 years later. That's affected them. That's how it's affected all of us. We've all got something, whether it's that critical parent. I had to, you know, me and my 2 sisters. My dad was a bodybuilder. We was all fat. We're lazy. Later on in life, we still have this conversation now. So this is a sponge, and unpicking them sponges. So them people, they get picked first in a subtle way. And like I say, an inclusive, no sliding. And what this creates then is an onion effect, layers, the ripple effect. The ripple effect, because groups are setting up with groups, people are bringing more people down, more people are opening up. You know, like we say, the system broken, mental health's gone through the roof. And let's be honest, it was neglect during COVID. We clapped the NHS, and I've got all that front line there, but we were seeing people that not seeing anybody for a year. What's a phone call? You know, and we learnt more. Our role with TAF was to set up Blokes Uniteds all over. It changes all the time, and everything's about people. Remembering your little nuggets. How did last week go? Remembering what the football team is, what band they're like, what stuff like that. I was just saying to my colleagues and Jess earlier on, I was in the supermarket the other day, and it was, this woman's in the queue, and I'm thinking, will you hurry up? I've only got 2 bits. And I had to stop and check myself, because that might be the only person she speaks to all day. So the next time I went in a supermarket, I see at the length of one queue. People need people, and I think sometimes we're in a rat race of a world. We forget that type of stuff, because that smile, that opening that door, that little good morning is a world, and it could be life-saving. I know what I need. I used to go, why can't anybody tell? I was a funny one. I was the one that arranged everything and all this, and inside I was dying. What's different for me now, I've got a team around me. We know we can get on each other's nerves, quite what you call it, because we've all got our thing. But we're recognising people, and I'm hoping everybody else can recognise that in people.
Talking about queues, Wayne.
Am I gone on?
I think there's a few people lined up behind you.
Right, anyway. Yeah, we've got loads. Like I said, I could go on for hours. But thanks for listening. I'm just going to put you back on support. But thank you very much. All right.
Emily's braver than me. But a timely reminder, should it hardly be needed to be said, of one of the many reasons why we do what we do, and not only the power of individual stories, but also the contribution that different sports and different approaches can make to health and well-being. So I'm delighted now that I'll welcome colleagues from Rugby League Cares, Emma Goldsmith and Tracy Hurd from Movember, who are going to do a double act. I'm not sure who's singing first, but they'll do it between us. Okay.
I was nervous about what picture you were going to have chosen to put up, but we'll go with that. Hi everybody, and how do you follow that? That was brilliantly passionate and brilliantly brave, so thank you, Wayne, for sharing. Hi everybody, I'm Emma Goldsmith. For those of you who don't know, I am Head of Community across at Rugby League Cares. Many of you won't know what the charity does, so very briefly, we are responsible for 2 key areas across the sport. We're the sports charity, so we look after everything to do with our professional players, their welfare, their well-being, but we also, and the side that I'm absolutely passionate about, is around we look after the well-being, the welfare of anybody living within our towns and communities. So you could be supported through the charity if you were representing your country internationally, but similarly your well-being and welfare is as important to us if you're the dad of an under-7 playing at a small club out in Bramley and Leeds. So the scope of what we do is fairly broad. And our vision, everything that we do, is really all about helping people live more flourishing and thriving lives. And as you'll all know in this room today, a huge, huge component of that is looking after people's mental health. We've worked alongside our communities for a really long time now. We've been privileged to do a lot of that work with Andy and his fantastic team to really understand the needs, the challenges, the barriers, the strengths, the ambitions, everything that matters to people living within our towns and communities. And for those of you that aren't Rugby League fans, firstly, shame on you. Secondly, you probably recognise that Rugby League is a sport born out of our most deprived, socially disadvantaged communities. So our families, our people, our players, they face more challenges than most. So our role is to really try and understand the biggest areas that we can support within and to provide evidence-based packages of care that can reach and be upscaled to our entire communities. And that's really where our relationship with Edge Hill began. And I'm just going to focus my few minutes on that relationship, if that's all right, Andy, because I think way back in 2016, 17, not sure, somewhere around there, somewhere near the start of your 10 years anyway, we partnered with Andy, and we partnered with Andy and Edge Hill because we had a very clear shared vision, and that was all about people. It was all about health inequalities. It was all about doing right by those that felt that they hadn't had right done to them before. It was all about finding creative new ways of engaging people that couldn't reach services and recognising the importance of sport and physical activity and being able to do that. So an example, it's an old dated one I've been using for years and years and years, so apologies to those that have heard it already. But we feel privileged as a sport that people come to us in times of crisis. They come to us in times of hardship where there's safe support networks. So whether that's their club on a Sunday afternoon, whether watching the kids play, whether it's the supporters network or the forum online, whether it's showing up in the clubhouse on another day, we are where they turn to. So it's really, really, really important to us that we work alongside our people, co-produce, co-create, whatever the latest buzzword is, to design services that matter. And Andy and his team have been fundamental in us doing that over the last few years. They co-created our original programme in this space, which we mentioned previously, which is Offload, which is all around tackling health inequalities for men, around mental health. And that programme wouldn't be where it is today if it hadn't been for Andy and the fantastic team that worked alongside us on it. And I think the biggest, most influential factor of that was what Andy and his team gave us was credible evidence. They made what we were doing credible to partners, to funders, to the health system. It made people stand up and listen that actually our communities, they didn't want to attend an IAP service where they didn't know anybody in a clinical setting, but actually they wanted hand-holding or supporting or a service provided that met their needs, that recognised them for who they were within their town and community. So all of that work, then the published papers, we call it the nerdy stuff, so I'm sorry to anybody that I've offended in the room there, but the stuff that Andy provides to us is what's made the programme so successful. To just that one programme in itself has now seen around 10,000 men since it started. So I think the most exciting part for me in continuing in the journey with the centre moving forwards is for us to continue to grow PhD places, to us to continue to grow the research, the evidence, but to be able to use that in real life, in real world examples, to turn what we know our communities need into something that's proven, that's evidence-based, that funders and the people that are able to help us make these systems and these cultural changes, makes them listen. That's it for me. Is that all right? Yeah.
Oh, I haven't got any money yet. Really want money.
Thank you.
So I'll just follow on, and we're up here together because we have got a fantastic partnership delivering programmes in mental health with Rugby League Cares and Movember, but Edge Hill and other partners in the room are absolutely fundamental to making those work as well. So I'm Tracy Hurd. I'm the Europe Young Men's Health Director for Movember. It's a new title, so I'm still getting used to saying it. It's the hairy season at the moment. I hope you all acknowledge that, and I can see some really good facial hair in the room today. Haven't managed to get Andy to grow a mo yet, so that's still on the agenda. But it's our 20th year this year. Started in Australia in 2003. A couple of friends having a chat in a bar and lamenting, you know, that no one had facial hair and the moustache was not a thing anymore. And for a laugh, they challenged each other to grow a mo. And out of that conversation in a pub in Melbourne 20 years ago, we now have Movember. We've raised 1 billion Aussie dollars over the last 20 years and funded over 1,300 programs and projects, invested in clinical research in prostate cancer and testicular cancer, and more recently funded programs in mental health. And one of those programs that we've worked on for the last 10 years is Ahead of the Game. Ahead of the Game's been mentioned previously. And Ahead of the Game started as a Movember-funded research project at the University of Wollongong. It's a program we've then taken on, and we're now delivering it globally in our markets in the UK, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, delivered in Canada, and we're about to start in the US as well. So what we're part of here is part of a global program. And Ahead of the Game is a mental health literacy and resilience program aimed at 12 to 18-year-olds and delivered through community sport by people in sport. So all of our facilitators are either professional players, ex-professional players, sports coaches, people working in sports trusts and foundations. We've worked with Rugby League Cares over the last 6 years in the UK, and they're our implementation partner in the UK. And we were very lucky also to be the official mental fitness partner of the Rugby League World Cup, and we delivered Ahead of the Game through the community programme for their social impact programme. So at the moment we are delivering Ahead of the Game with Rugby League Cares, with Everton, with Fulham, and with Leeds Rhinos in the UK. We've got a partnership with the GAA in Ireland. Hey. Oh, good to see you. And then in Australia we're working with the AFL, and in New Zealand with the All Blacks. So a real mix of organisations and sports, and the wonderful thing about Ahead of the Game is that it can be delivered across sports. So it's a multi-sport programme. And over the last, say, 3 years, we've probably delivered to about 30,000 participants in the UK alone. So it's a programme that we've been able to scale up, and one of the reasons we've been able to do that is because it has got an evidence base. We know it works, and we continue to evaluate it and research it. And the PhD, Ellie, our PhD student looking at Ahead of the Game, is a really important part of that continuous research and evaluation. And it allows us to actually continue to implement, but also continue to learn and develop the programme. And one of the things that Edge Hill has helped us with it was originally developed in Wollongong for community sport, so we know it works in community sport. What we did with Edge Hill here, and St Helens Public Health in the audience, some funding that we got from government funding through St Helens, was able to evaluate the programme through school sport, and we were able to do work with Edge Hill with the evaluation to see how it worked in that setting. So we are now delivering it through community sport and school sport settings, again with our fantastic delivery partners who have already got those sort of links with schools and are delivering it in schools. which means that we can reach more kids, we can reach kids that are not playing organised sport, but actually playing sport in that school setting as well. I think one of the important things there is that, and I think people have talked about it a lot tonight, it's about collaboration and partnership. And there was no preciousness from the researchers that we were working with at the University of Wollongong and Edge Hill about actually working together, and for Edge Hill to be working on an existing programme. Our colleagues at Wollongong are still involved in the programme, they still are researchers on the programme, but they really embrace that collaboration between academic organisations. And one of the things Movember has also funded is something we're calling the Global Alliance for Mental Health and Sport, GAMES. It sort of works as an acronym, but we'll go with it. But you know, Andy and his team have been really instrumental in supporting the setting up of that sort of academic network, and well, I don't know how much of a burden it was going over to Sydney last year and delivering at the conference that they had, but you know, it's really good to see that academic collaboration, and I think what I see in the centre is really, you know, really bringing some of that together. And then I'll just say one other thing about I think the importance of the centre as well. Our programme is not a physical activity programme, it's a mental health, literacy and resilience programme delivered through sport. And I think what some of the work that the centre is doing is it's about broadening that out. The sports sector has a role to play, not just in physical activity and increasing participation and the importance of physical activity for mental health, but also understanding how the sports sector can deliver on mental health outcomes in different ways as well. Thank you.
Just for the record, that is a burden, and I'm happy to repeat if we need to. But delighted that Tracy has flagged colleagues at Wollongong, because they've been incredibly supportive in the work that we've been doing here, and delighted that we'll be working more closely with those and other international collaborators to realise a vision that we've articulated. I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to bring us finally to colleagues at Everton before I hand over to Christina to bring things to a close for us. We've been talking about a number of years and how long we've been working together. The university is now in its 11th year in partnership with Everton. The person I'm now about to introduce had a full head of hair at that point, and I was probably 2 stone lighter, but I'll go to the creative football guys, hopefully, for solutions to some of that. So without further ado, I am delighted to welcome a long-standing supporter of the university, students and all of the colleagues here, Michael Saller, who's the Deputy CEO of Everton in the community.
Thanks, Andy. A youthful Andy. 11 years of being working with Andy, and despite that, he still gives me the graveyard shift this evening. But no, it's a real privilege on behalf of Everton in the community to be here this evening and to be part of the research centre. A real privilege. For those who may not know that much about Everton in the community, I'll give you a quick whistle-stop tour. I'm conscious of time, but essentially we've been operating for 35 years now. We are the official charity of Everton Football Club. Won't be discussing the 10-point deduction this evening. And although we are part of that Everton family and we have access to the football players, men, women, youth team, former players, and importantly the badge and everything that goes with the football club, we are a standalone, separate, independent charity as well. And it's always important for us to mention our funders, to keep our funders happy. So our key funders are the Football Foundation, the Steve Morgan Foundation, the Premier League, and also Merseyside Police. In terms of our organisation, we have 60 different projects operating across the entire life course. And what I could have done, Andy, is just say whatever Emma said, just substitute rugby league to football. Emma articulates it a lot better than I will. But there is a lot of similarities there and different ways of engaging people onto our projects. But the 60 projects we deliver, we deliver the bulk of them at our campus, which is just over the road from Goodison Park. We've invested £13 million in those capital projects, completely transformed that community. And it's a community which is one of the most deprived in the country. It's in the top 1% of the most deprived within the country. And with that, as we know, comes a number of challenges, a number of poor outcomes when it comes to health, education, employment, crime. And it's those 60 projects which help to tackle those various challenges. Across those projects, we have in total 200 volunteers that support that delivery. And a number of those volunteers are Edgehill students. We have 130 staff. Again, a number of those staff are former Edgehill students. We've got Jack and James here this evening. We've got Steve here this evening. I realise I just entered into that poison chalice. I've bound to have missed some people out as well there, but there's a lot of crossover between the organisations over that 11th year period that we've been working so closely with Edgehill, and there's a lot of benefits in a number of different areas. Across those projects, there are different ways of measuring impact, and we're able to engage 20,000 people each year who are those who are experiencing some of those various challenges that I've touched upon there, and it's through working with those 20,000 people on a regular basis that we're able to have such a great impact with that work. And the projects that we've co-created with Edgehill are having a huge impact, and the different ways of measuring impact, one of the ways that we do measure that is through social value. Every 3 years we'll carry out a social value analysis. Our most recent one in 2022, late last year, showed that for every £1 invested in Everton and community, it generates £29.86. So a huge return on that investment. In terms of the real focus this evening and the research centre, we first began working in that mental health space and that space around how sport and physical activity is so important with mental health. In 2007, we launched our first project, and it was not long after that we saw the real benefits of that project. We had an external evaluation take place, and they found that over 50% of people were able to then completely come away from support from the NHS Mental Health Trust, who had referred those people to ourselves. They'd also been able to completely come off medication for their mental health condition. So we knew that we could make great strides in this space. That was 2007. We fast forward to where we are now. We have 15 different mental health projects. And over that time, through the collaboration with Edgehill, we've been able to identify different groups of people. So we're supporting, for example, new fathers, people with long-term physical health conditions, military veterans, a whole range of different people who are either experiencing poor mental health or at risk of experiencing poor mental health. And it's through targeting those different groups that we've been able to have a huge impact in improving their lives and improving those various outcomes that we've spoken about this evening. I think where we're at now as well, so in terms of the projects, 15 projects operating. Earlier this year, we also opened up the People's Place, the first of its kind mental health and wellbeing hub. We've got John here this evening who heads that capital project up, and Edgehill were quite pivotal with everything around that building as well, in terms of the design of it, the consultation with the NHS, importantly the local community, our existing participants, and making sure that what's delivered in the building is delivered in the right way, and it's delivered for the people to achieve those various outcomes that we want to achieve. There have been different developments happen external to ourselves, and the engagement has been very poor. But what we're seeing with the People's Place is it's the complete opposite. And it shows the importance of that consultation, the importance of the involvement with colleagues from Edgehill. In terms of the People's Place, it is the first of its kind, purpose-built mental health hub aligned with Premier League Football Club, and we house a number of our mental health projects within that building now. In addition to that, we also have a very comprehensive offer to people walking in unannounced into the building. Since it opened in March, we've had over 100 people come in and access professional support. And a real kind of, one of the real reasons for that is it's the attachment to football. It's that breaking down the stigma, utilising the reach of the football club and how the football players are involved with that, and helping to raise awareness, helping to deliver a message in a much more effective way than the average person. Some of those people have been close to crisis point. Some of them had the intention of taking their own life on that day. And one of the unique features of the People's Place is people can walk in unannounced, and within 10 minutes they can be sat down in a private space having a conversation with a member of staff. And then beyond that, if they need professional support, we have that. We mentioned we have our own GP, first Premier League GP in the country. We have a GP trainee, we have trainee clinical psychologists, we have a mental health nurse, a bereavement nurse, a counsellor. We have that layer of professional support which is available. We've also seconded a CAB worker, so any support around housing, finance, welfare issues, all of that's available as well. We have our own food pantry, so people can come in, and it's the idea that it's that one door for a whole range of different services. One example is a gentleman walked in who had the intention of taking his own life that day. He happened to pass the People's Place on his way to town where he intended to carry that out, and he came in. Within 10 minutes he sat down with a member of staff. He spent 2 hours in total with that member of staff. He spoke to our GP, the CAB worker, stitched him in with the mental health crisis team, and then looking forward, he's looking at joining our New Fathers programme as well. So it shows you the impact that the People's Place can have, and all of that goes back to the early days in terms of that planning and the consultation which took place with our partners here at Red Jill. As I say, it's been over 100 people access professional support since the People's Place has been opened. And moving forward, again, the partnership with Ed Jill continues to grow and go from strength to strength. We recently launched a cardiopulmonary screening service, first of its kind in the country in terms of what's being offered there. We have Lucy and also Louise here tonight who are involved with that. They've been involved in previous work with Ed Jill and delivering a diabetes project. Also, we'll be launching an ADHD project soon in partnership with Ed Jill. The lead person for that STIG is a former student here at Ed Jill. He went through the Masters Sport, Physical Activity and Mental Health Masters degree. So again, those links with Ed Jill and those common themes are consistent. And then obviously moving forward beyond that, we have the Goodison legacy. So I'm not sure how much people are aware, but Everton Football Club will be moving to a new stadium in a couple of years' time or so. And the plans for the stadium are around how we can look at expanding the work of Everton in the community. Well, there are 4 objectives in total. One is non-abandonment to that L4 area. I mentioned before the level of deprivation in the area. Another one is making sure that the Goodison legacy is financially viable. As I mentioned, one of them is around building on the work of Everton in the community, and the 4th objective is around making sure it's identified as Everton. We know the importance of that football theme and Everton in particular, the trust, the loyalty that the community has with that. In terms of what will happen on the site, we'll be having our own health centre, a GP practice. We'll have CAB involved with it, a number of different partners. We've spoken about the importance of collaboration this evening. A number of different partners will be on that site. We'll have high quality affordable housing on that site, a new Everton in the community headquarters, office space for Everton Football Club, and also green space as well. So really exciting times moving forward. There's a huge amount taking place at the moment, but certainly moving forward, that's the intention is for that to continue and to grow. And at the heart of that will be our partnership work with Ed Jill, and certainly the plans going forward with the research centre as well. And I'll finish on that point. Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Conscious of time, but I'm delighted just to bring this evening to a close by inviting Christina Blakey from our Knowledge Exchange Office to just give you a few ways in which you might be able to continue to engage, not just with the centre, but more widely with the university. And delighted to recognise the contribution that Christina and colleagues in the office have already made to the plans and opportunities that hopefully we'll be able to take forward from the centre, and for colleagues hopefully in the room to take advantage of that moving forward. But without further ado, I'll hand over to Christina.
Thank you very much, Andy. So, apologies that you get to end on a really dry topic after all that we've heard tonight. Thank you for that, Andy. I really appreciate you giving me not just the graveyard slot, but I think you buried me with this one, so we'll see how we go. So, most of what you've heard about tonight when we talked about collaboration and co-creation, the work of our GTAs, the networking side, the events, seminars, all sit under the banner of knowledge exchange here at the university. And as of March earlier this year, the university invested in that and created myself and my team, to be the one-stop shop for anybody outside of the university to be able to access the expertise and the facilities available at the university for our community partners, our business partners, the NHS, and others that we work with. So this is us. Quite like that photo. It's the first professional photo I've ever had taken that I actually like. So it's on everything. But my colleagues Linda and Ben, who are in the audience, give a wave. We are here to make it as easy, as straightforward, and as simple as possible for those outside of our ivory tower university walls to get the support and the access that you need. So, we've got a range of different solutions, different offerings. I'm not going to read through these in detail as we go because we're tight for time, but also because, to paraphrase what Hayley said, I actually want to know what we can do to support you, so I will be asking that question. So, accessing our students. You've heard from those in the room that they have employed our students, they've worked with them on work experience, live project briefs, industry doctorates where they've taken on PhD students with live projects for them to really evaluate and investigate the impact that you're having in the community. You can engage with our experts. Most of us have consultancy offerings, but it's around how do we levy that expertise to support you. So it can be consultancy within your organisation, expert advice, policy and procedure guidance and changes. What it can also be is taking the evidence that you've got, working with the centre and taking that to politicians, taking that to systematic committee reviews and leveraging all of the data that we hold collectively together about the impact these programmes can have. We also do testing and diagnostics for anyone who really, really wants to find out how fit they are. We can help you develop your people. So you've heard a lot about some of the programmes that we've worked with our partners on, but what we also do is bespoke CPD and continuing education programmes here at the university to enable your staff to be agile and responsive to your need to help your organisations grow. We have apprenticeship programmes, and we also have specialist programmes designed for SMEs to enable scaling up. And they are either part of fully funded programmes at the university. We have our facilities. You probably didn't get a chance to see them because it was dark when you arrived and it's been miserable and grey all day. But come on a sunny day in summer, particularly in the middle of summer, it's quiet, and enjoy the lakes, see the facilities we have. We've got a new life sciences building opening up back end of the year, March, April time. So there's new investment going on at the university every year. I think we were in a meeting this morning where George said that in the 10 out of the 13 years he's been there has been a major CapEx project at the university. So we're growing exponentially every year. Come and have a look, see what we can do for you, access our facilities, because they're here for the community to use. The crux of the centre, discover with us. Come work with our researchers to help you either evaluate the programmes you run or to engage in activities and research that you can't undertake yourself. We know that the capacity is always a problem, and that's what we're here to do. Use us to access other funding. You'd be surprised how far it goes with the university on your tagline. Because we do have access to funders, particularly within our research office. We can support bidding through to funders, particularly for research projects. So come and reach out to us because we are here to support. And then finally, and I'm really pleased about this one, you are the first people to hear about this outside of the university. So as of Monday, we'll be launching a new scheme built on a small amount of government funding that we got back in November, beginning of November, that we weren't expecting. So what we're doing with that is we're going to flip it so that we give it back to the community and the organisations we work with. So if there is something that you'd like to do with the university, whether it be accessing our facilities and equipment, doing some testing and diagnostics work, doing some consultancy, borrowing our expert advice, delivering some training and development for your own organisation or your volunteers, we will 50% match fund that if we can get it sorted and secured before March 2024. And all you have to do is drop us an email and we'll send you the application form because it's not yet published. But that's an opportunity for you to get 50% discount on the services to work with us. And it's a reward for those partners that have engaged with us. And then finally, we get to the actual question. So I'm a big fan of digital tech, but I'm hopeless at using it, so this may go wrong. But if you can get out your mobile phones and scan the QR code or go to slido.com with that lovely little code there, because as Hayley said earlier on, ask not what we can do for you, ask what you can do for the centre. I actually want to know what we can do for you. I want to know what your challenges are and what we can do to support you, what your needs are from the university and from the centre. And then we can use that to build the programmes that we go forwards with. I'm going to very sneakily see if I can do this. And it should, if actually people answer, pop up. Ha. Never better. Ooh, yeah. Finance is always a big one. If this comes up with funding again, yeah. I was going to say, we just get a big long list of funding related things. I quite like that. And let's see. Going to see if this works to go on to the next one. So you should get an opportunity as well to then go on to the next question, which goes to the what can we do to support you? These will be live for the next 3 or 4 days, so you don't have to answer them all now, and this is designed for sparking conversation with us going forwards. We will take these answers at the end of next week and build that into the offering that we can make for you. Shall I leave it on that one? Or? I'll hand it back to Andy now. Oh, there is, when these slides go out, there is a contact that's slightly separate from Andy's. We do have an external newsletter we send to all our organisations. It goes monthly, so if you do want to sign up or hear about any of the growth opportunities we've got, please do sign up to that.
Thanks, Christina. I'm conscious of time. As I said, these will remain live. We will be sharing the various assets. The website will go live, and we will be following up. Not with an evaluation form, we were pleased to know. No one ever fills those in, do they? But it will be with giving some updates on and an opportunity to engage with us. I do want to end by just thanking everybody in the room for each of their individual and collective contributions, not just today, but over the course of since when this very young professor was appointed. Probably because there was nobody else to appoint at the time. But I'm incredibly grateful to the support given to us by the university. George has been pivotal to that, but also colleagues in the research office, the graduate school, colleagues in the knowledge exchange office, and of course, none of this would have happened today without the help from our administrators, Lauren and Jay, who do all of this behind the scenes and allow us to hopefully piece this together. Delighted that everyone could make today. Please do now make your way through to hopefully some drinks and food and share some of those informal conversations and networks, and we look forward to working with you going forward. But thanks very much for your time.